If you can, I want you to stop right now and think of two things that are stress points to you in your ranching business. Today, Allan Crockett, business coach and ranching consultant, is my guest as we talk about the 6 Ps, all of which will no doubt tie back to those areas that are causing stress in your ranching business. We're going to start with people, and we'll discuss profit.
If we haven't changed anything, it would be ludicrous to think, okay, our profit will change because what? Well, because we think we're going to get better weather next year, or there'll be a better government program next year. And really, that's a terrible way to run a business.
So what are the rest of the 6 Ps? Well, listen in to find out on this episode of the Working Ranch Radio Show. And we welcome you back here again. This is the Working Ranch Radio Show, and I'm Justin Mills. Thanks for joining us on our program. If you're listening here on the radio, thanks for tuning in here today. And if you've chosen to download it through the podcast, various podcast sites, we're pretty much out there on all of them. We appreciate you taking the time to do that. Now, typically I say this, I usually give you a kind of a forewarning. Hey, this is a good show. You might want to consider sharing and passing around. But I'm going to say that with some reservation because of this. Because this is a show that if you find something here today that sort of resonates with what we're talking about, keep in mind that it's really simple to say when we're faced with things that somebody's pushing something back in us and here's some areas of your life or your ranching business that you should work on or you need to consider. It's pretty simple to say, well, this so-and-so, this person, this would be good for them to hear. Well, I'm just telling you right now, this is good for all of us to hear, and this show is especially for you if you find something that resonates here today, and I hope you enjoy it. Allan Crockett is my guest today. He's a ranching consultant, business coach, and we're going to be talking about the 6 Ps. And really, it's going to get into areas, as I said in the opening, if you have something that's stressful in your ranching business, you're going to find that is going to tie back into one or several of these 6 Ps that we're going to be talking about here today. Also, if you're listening here today, maybe you're not a rancher at all. Maybe a ranching is your side business or part of your business operations, but you also are a business owner in other areas. What we are talking about here today is really kind of widespread. It's not just tied specifically to ranching, but it's going to be business in general. And so it'll be a great topic that I hope you will enjoy today as we talk about these 6 Ps. I'm not going to give them to you right now because you're going to hear them as we talk about them here in just a moment with my guest today, Mr. Allan Crockett out of Arizona. Well, also coming up here at the end of a program, as we always do towards the last segment, is meteorologist Don Day joining us with a look at our long-term weather. Boy, it has been hot, but cooler weather is coming and some moisture in some much needed areas. We're going to talk about it on this week's long-term weather forecast with meteorologist Don Day. Right now, a thank you to our sponsors of the Working Ranch Radio Show, Gelbvieh and Balancer, the smart, reliable, and profitable choice. For more information, go to their website at gelbvieh.org. And Zoetis, it's the little things that could derail progress, but your herd can be covered. Visit getlessparasites.com for solutions from Zoetis. And the American Akaushi Association. Experience the difference at akaushi.com. Well, right now, as we do each and every episode, let's check in with the captain, Tim O'Byrne. He is the publisher and editor of Working Ranch Magazine for this week's edition of Tim's 2 Cents.
Hey, everybody out there in Working Ranch Radio Land. Justin, I really love what you're doing with the show. You're tackling some hard and heavy topics, and one of them was last episode, and maybe you can fill them in a little bit, Justin, on what you talked about regarding the BLM up there in Montana. They're up to some fishy stuff there, changing the rules on some of the grazing leases and turning them over into bison. So I want you to follow up on that. That's a very interesting topic to me. Next topic is all you young folks out there, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is looking for interns for their annual convention next year in February. It's going to be held in New Orleans, Louisiana. Always a fun time. Great educational opportunity. Go to ncba.org and find out how you can be an intern at that event. And finally, Justin, you talked about you asked folks, what are you guys reading? I just went to an estate sale and for 50 cents picked up a hard copy version of The Sackets by Louis L'Amour. No wonder that guy's such an amazing writer, and so well respected, because the book is great. I'm just starting into it and hope to finish it up here before fall. Back to you, Justin.
All right. Thanks, Captain. And Louis L'Amour, all I can say is classic Western literature. If it wasn't for him, I don't know how to got through the long bus rides growing up in elementary and junior high school, because I think I got through about every book our library had, including those Sackett series 2 or 3 times. So classic Western literature, no doubt there. Real quick, the Captain was mentioning just a little bit ago about the BLM changing a grazing permit up in Montana. And what he's referring to is, if you go back and you listen to last week's show, that was episode 81, it was entitled, Is the BLM Out of Bounds on This One? As Jay Bodner, Executive Vice President for the Montana Stock Growers Association, and Caitlin Glover, Executive Director of the Public Lands Council, joining me to talk about this permit change and how it came about. Kind of some concern there as far as how it all happened, and if that's setting some precedents for things down the road, some real concerns that they have, and you can hear all about it. Now, while you're there on the podcast site, don't forget to look through the list of other things, because we've had some great shows on here that are very relevant to us here in the ranching industry. Well, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to get into the 6 Ps. What are they? Well, stay tuned to find out. Allan Crockett's up next, my guest, when we return on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
At the American Akaushi Association, we're more than prime. The American Akaushi Association was created to help ranchers be more profitable and find opportunities when using Akaushi genetics in their herd. We focus on market opportunities for our members and offer support from conception to consumer. When you choose Akaushi, you have a network right there with you. Experience the difference at akaushi.com. That's AKAUSHI.com.
And we welcome you back here to the Working Ranch Radio Show. Justin Mills with you as we head now into our featured interview today. And joining me is Allan Crockett, who's a business coach and consultant. As we were talking, Allan, before we started recording here, we talked about need to go back and look when you were on the show last, but I sure appreciate you joining us here today.
Glad to be here, Justin.
We're going to be talking today about the 6 Ps, and everybody's probably wondering, okay, what does that mean, the 6 Ps? And really what it gets down to, Allan, it's the idea of how do we take our ranching business and use some things within that, and we're going to use these 6 Ps as ways that we can either gauge or begin to build a better business situation in our ranching environment. So before we get into going through each of those, as you have consulted and you have taught for several years with ranchers across the country, where did this come from and what's the principle behind it?
Well, they've come together just as I've worked with people, and it seems like every business that I've worked with, at least one of these P's comes into play, and sometimes 2 or 3 of them, and occasionally all of them. And so I just, a convenient way to put it together and call it the 6 P's is what I've done. People, principles, priority, plan, profit, and progress are the 6 Ps. And as you said, we'll get into those, but it really all revolves around people. What I've noticed is and I've said this, I think I said it on the show previously with you, every problem's a people problem. And if we can't get the people problems fixed and get people talking and communicating, we don't have a really good opportunity, a really good possibility or chance of really making progress the way we want to.
Mm-hmm. I think in anybody's business, ranching business, everybody's business has some areas that could be tweaked to make better. And there's also, for a lot of folks out there, maybe all areas of your ranching business could be better. And so as we go over these today, these are going to be things that, as you said, if we're looking at different areas of our ranch, more than likely it's going to stem back to one of these 6 Ps that we are going to talk about here today. Is that correct?
Yes.
So let's get started. You already kind of mentioned, and there's probably no mistaking why people is the first P on the list. There's probably, as you just prefaced there a little bit ago, it seems like that is one of the biggest issues we deal with. So let's start with the 6 Ps. And you said people is the first P in that list.
Yeah, it's really the most important one too, because if it kind of starts around trust and being trustworthy, and when I look at that, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And if we don't, then all of a sudden trust starts to erode, and that could be in anything from a little deal like putting out salt or fixing a fence or water gap to, working on a drought plan or moving cows or really monitoring the rangeland to see what's going on there. So it really comes down to trust and trustworthiness. I think another piece of that is transparency, that we don't have hidden agendas, that we know what everybody involved in our team or on our team, what they're after, what they're trying to accomplish. I've seen that where, in a father-son relationship or two brothers, sometimes even husband and wife, there's a lack of transparency. There's some hidden agendas. And some of that has just come up over years because somebody didn't do what they said they were going to do. And now the trust has maybe been eroded a little bit. And so it kind of starts there and making sure we're all headed the same direction.
Mm-hmm. I find it interesting because some advice, and it's not that I'm some wise owl here of knowledge, but it's something that I've said to my kids, and I said, your word is all you have to offer to somebody. And I think that gets back to what you were saying. That trust element is so key. And if that foundation is not there, it's almost like there's really no point going forward.
Yeah. And, you look back, and especially in agriculture over the years, that our word was our bond. And if we said we were going to do something, we did it. And that was with our neighbors, with our banker, with anybody, agencies that we work with, obviously within our families. And it's interesting. I remember my grandfather years ago, hearing the story. I wasn't there. It was one of my uncles, and he was a teenager and had decided not to do something he had committed to doing. And my grandpa just looked at him and he said, "A man that don't keep his word ain't worth a damn," and turned and walked away. Well, it really sunk home with my uncle, and he went back and did what he had changed his mind and wasn't going to do. Went back and did it. And I think that's kind of the way, historically we've looked at that, in ranching and farming, agriculture, but we seem to have moved away from that. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if there's a different culture that's owning ranches and running ranches today than what there was 50 and 100 years ago. But it certainly is something that we really need to focus in on it and make sure that we do the things that we say we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's move to the next one, and that is principles. So outline that one for us.
When I talk about principles, I like to talk about the law of gravity. And, we call it a law, but it's a principle. And it doesn't matter if you're in Wyoming where you are, or Arizona where I am, or Asia, or Australia, or Alaska. The law of gravity, or the principle of gravity, is the same. It always works every time. You step, down a step, you're going to go down. You step off a curb, you step down. If you crawl up on your kitchen table and think you're going to walk across the kitchen, you're not. You're going, one step off the table and you're down. It always works. You step on a 10-story building and think you can walk off of it. Well, you will walk off and you'll come down. We just don't walk through air. It's a true and correct principle. So when I look at principles and maybe tie that back to people just a little bit, when we operate with people and with honesty and integrity and transparency and common goals and common plans, and we're all pulling the cart the same direction, we get someplace. When we don't, we butt heads. So you could take that and you can say, okay, well, there's ecological principles of how we make grass grow, the things that we have to make grass grow. Those principles of growing grass, like moisture and soil fertility and soil temperature and photosynthesis and time, those 5 principles, they work any place in the world. then it's just adjusting our plan according to that principle, those ecological principles. If it's cold and soil temperature is really low, we're not going to grow much feed, and you know that. If our moisture is low, we won't grow as much feed. If fertility is low, we won't. So we can look at those principles, and then we can say, okay, how can I work within those principles to try and grow more grass, increase soil fertility, and that kind of thing. So when I look at principles, whether it's people principles or ecological principles or even livestock and the way we work and handle livestock and those kinds of things, they're true and correct principles, and we just adapt them to our situation and where we are and where we are geographically, and then maybe where we are socially and mentally and that kind of thing, but we work within those principles. Mm-hmm. So identifying and understanding them is kind of key.
When we talk about principles, and as you were talking there, I was thinking about, you said, it's the things that are going to work every time. And when we start getting into things like working livestock or how we're going to grow and manage our pasture, our range conditions, I think sometimes we struggle. I feel myself sometimes really struggling of putting trust in those principles that I think, well, because a lot of times everybody thinks their situation is unique to everybody else. Right. And so what I find interesting is that it's hard to put trust in those principles when, as you said, these are things that will work every time. And that is difficult because in ranching, we all think we're unique.
Yeah, you're right. And what happens is, and I've heard it, and I'm sure you've heard it, but working with somebody in Florida, well, that might work in Arizona, but it won't work in Florida. And, you go to Montana, well, that might work in Florida, but it won't work in Montana, or, wherever, Mexico, Canada. And yet, if it's a true and correct principle, it'll work anywhere. We just have to adapt and say, okay, how are we going to try to force a square peg into a round hole, or are we going to work with this principle and be successful? Mm-hmm. Another very simple example: if you go up and you touch a hot stove, it's going to burn you. I mean, that's a correct principle, and that doesn't matter if you're in Wyoming or yeah. or wherever. You touch a hot stove, you get burned. You pick up a hot coal out of a fire, and it's going to burn your hand. You hold on to it. So those kinds of principles, when we look at the principles we're talking about here, it doesn't make any difference where you are. They're applicable universally. Mm-hmm. It makes no difference. And so with that, then we just need to understand them and say, okay, well, how can we work with those principles to have a better life, a better business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I equate this particular subject topic that you and I are talking about with principles and trusting those with that of a pilot and having to trust his instruments to fly, and knowing that I'm going to get there based upon this data that I'm receiving and manage off that data. And I'll tell you, and not to belabor the topic here, but that is philosophically very hard to do.
It is. It is. And we've seen that. You mentioned pilots, and I'm a pilot, and you mentioned that, and there are pilots who are no longer living, that have died in plane crashes because they didn't trust their instruments. Mm-hmm. And they flew right into the side of a mountain, or they got in a cloud and just inverted and just came straight down into the ground. And how could you do that? What would cause that? And yet it's a thing of trust and not trusting the principles that are there.
Mm-hmm. You bet. Folks, my guest today is Allan Crockett, business coach, consultant to ranchers, to folks across the country. We are talking about the 6 Ps. We've already talked about 2, people and principles. We have 4 more to go. We're going to continue with that when we return on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Control comes when you focus on the little things, from daily chores to parasite management, because any little thing could derail progress. But your herd can be covered. Visit GetLessParasites.com for solutions from Zoetis.
And we welcome you back here to the Working Ranch Radio Show. Justin Mills with you as I am joined today. My guest is Mr. Allan Crockett. He's a business coach and consultant to ranchers here across the country. And we are talking about the 6 Ps. And if you missed the first 2 that we talked about just a moment ago, don't forget to go to our podcast site and you can download the show and listen back to those. They were people and principles. Some good discussion that we had regarding those. Allan, let's move on to the next one, and that is priority. So let's give us a foundation on that.
Yeah. So the priority thing, what I have seen is too often times we get so focused on working that we lose track of the things that are really important to us. And I mentioned this to a client of mine in Canada the other day, and he's a first generation rancher, made money in other businesses, and then been ranching for several years now and got out of the other businesses. But he made the comment, he says, at least 50% of the people that I associated with in my previous business are divorced. And they're divorced because they just spent so much time working, they neglected their families. And so when I look at priority, we just need to make sure that we don't lose focus of the things that matter most to us. And that can be your faith, your family, even your business. And within the business, certain things that you maybe have a priority you're trying to focus on. But don't forget about family and faith. You know, probably the 2 most important things. I say probably. I'll take the probably out of that. The 2 most important things we have is our faith and our family. And if we lose that because of business, we failed in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I, earlier we said one of the first P we talked about was people as being, and it seems like when there are issues in ranching businesses, whether it's within your own ranch or maybe a multi-family situation, there is a commonality with people. But when you talk about priorities, that's pretty important that we really stick to what's important at the end of the day.
Yes. And before the show, we were talking about how, practice for athletics is starting up pretty quick for your kids and that kind of thing. And, is that a priority? I want to go watch my kids play sports or be involved in a play or a dance or whatever it is at school, or 4-H or FFA. If we neglect that, where in life do the kids learn, and where do they change that and come back and say, Dad thought I was really important, or Mom thought I was really important because they attended this and supported me in that. And if we lose focus of that, I think down the road we risk too much losing our family, whether that's a spouse or our kids. Especially when we look at ranching, we want the kids to come back and be involved, or we want to help them get their own place, or whatever that is. Golly sakes, if Dad only worked all the time and didn't have time to come and support me in my other activities, why do I want to create that kind of life for my kids going forward? And so I think we just need to not forget and make sure that we prioritize our family on a regular basis. And yeah, I understand there's times when we're at shipping or roundup branding, whatever, that we put in some long days and maybe we can't make everything happen. But then there's other times that, the cows will still be there tomorrow. The kids are going to be gone. And for those of us that the kids have left home or are getting closer to that age where they're going to be leaving, you look back and it seems like the day before yesterday, they were just little babies being born and now they're gone. And life happens very quickly. So we can't lose focus of those kinds of things.
I think another thing in that priority category or conversation that we're having is that we take the time to not just think about them, but that we write them down, whether that's through your mission statement or part of your vision statement of your ranching business. But I think sometimes it's easy to say, you could probably ask everybody out there and say, are your kids your high priority? And offhand, they'll say, yeah, they are. But do your actions reflect that?
I think you couldn't have said it better than that. Actions speak louder than words. And so are we really doing that? And that's a little self evaluation or introspection on that. How much time did you actually spend with your spouse this last week that wasn't business related, that we went on a date or we had some conversation in the evening that was not business related, or I took one of my kids and did something just one-on-one with that kid, or maybe it was just a phone call and let my child that's married and has a couple of kids or something let her or him know that I'm thinking about them and how's life going and how are you doing and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. You bet. Let's move on to the next one. This is the fourth in the list, and this is plan. So outline that for us.
Yeah, so a plan, if we don't plan our life or our time or our priority, it just goes by whatever wind happens to blow today. Whatever direction the wind's blowing is kind of where we go, figuratively speaking. And so when we look at that and think about plan, well, there needs to be a plan and a business plan. That could be an expansion, depending on where we are in life. We may be trying to expand our business, maybe lease the neighbor's place or expand even in a different geographical location or expand with a different species of livestock. So it could be a plan for expansion. It could be a plan for reduction that we're trying to slow down and rein things in a little bit. It could be a succession plan. It could be a drought plan. It could be a marketing plan. Genetics plan, a plan for improvement in infrastructure, whether that's putting in a pipeline or some fencing or cleaning out some dugouts and ponds and that kind of thing. But have a plan that is put in place. And when I look at that, Justin, I like to see the big picture. Where do I want my business to be 10 and 15 years from now? But that is so far out that we don't put any urgency to that. So I like to bring it back to a 3-year plan and say, okay, as part of where I want to be 10, 12, 15 years down the road, what do I need to develop in the next 3 years to make sure that I get there? And I really focused a lot on helping people develop a 3-year plan as part of a big picture of things. And that plan can include all kinds of things, but it's that 3 years seems to be optimum. The science kind of points that direction that 3-year plan. I'll break it down into, okay, now if this is where I want to be in 3 years, what has to happen so I'm where I need to be in 2 years and a year from now? Then we take that first year and we can break it down by months and the months by weeks and the weeks by days. And then we measure instead of just, here's where I want to be down the road. But we never get that plan put together.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Never taken the time to really write it down. I always think of this saying that if you aim at nothing, you're bound to hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
And I know that was something, you helped me with a couple of years ago, was just the planning element. And it really was even just breaking it down to daily to weekly basis. Because, it was getting to a point, I know for me, it was like wake up in the morning and I become more reactionary to the problems rather than more proactive in dealing with the day, the week, the month, and the year.
Yeah, and that happens, and it's so easy for that to happen because, whatever, you get out of bed, gosh, it snowed, we better go check this, or it's dry, we better go check this, or it rained and we better go check the water gap, and then we see something along the way, and a cow's in the wrong pasture or something. Oh, okay, we got to come back and do that, and we just react throughout the day to those kinds of things. And then we look back and, 3-5 years down the road and gosh, we haven't made any progress toward that 10-year goal that we wanted to get to. So having a well-defined plan and then leaving time for crisis because they happen. The cows get out. We have fires. We have water gaps that need fixing and stuff. And somebody gets sick or somebody dies or there's an outbreak of foot rot or whatever in our cows. And those kinds of things, we have to leave time for that because we know we have to deal with it. But at the same time, we need to not just get in the airplane and start flying and think we're going to end up someplace because it doesn't happen. We got to have direction.
You bet. Let's hit one more before we head to break here, and that is profit. That's the fifth P in the list. So let's talk about profit.
Yeah. So profit. A lot of people say, well, yeah, we had a good year this year. The weather was good. We had good moisture and we made money, or, the market was good. So we made money, and weather and market should not determine whether or not we're profitable. They're going to affect the degree of profitability, but we ought to be profitable year in and year out, despite the weather and despite the market. And in order to do that, we have to have a plan for that. And if we're not planning for that profit, it's just like getting out of bed and jumping in the pickup or on a horse and getting to work and wondering what we're going to do or kind of have an idea and just let the wind take us there. Mm-hmm. But if we plan a profit, then we can adjust that plan throughout the year according to weather and market and other phenomena that might occur. But if we don't have a plan, we're just shooting from the hip, and most years we won't be profitable. And then when we do get profitable, then we pay off some debt, and then we're right back in the same hole we were. So it needs to be planned for and thought through and figured out.
We're going to take a quick break here. Allan, when we come back after the break, I want to continue a little bit. I have one more question regarding profit. We're going to talk about that a bit. My guest today, Allan Crockett, who's a business coach and consultant. He's out of Arizona, and he is our guest joining us as we're talking about the 6 Ps. We're going to continue when we come back here on the Working Ranch Radio Show. For commercial cow-calf producers, crossbreeding with Gelbvieh Balancer is the smart, reliable, and profitable choice. Gelbvieh Balancer females offer maternal superiority through increased fertility, greater longevity, and more pounds of calf weaned per cow exposed. In the feed yard, Balancer cattle can offer increased performance, improved feed efficiency, and have excellent carcass merit. Balancers add the pounds, make the grade, and deliver the value. Gelbvieh Balancer, the smart, reliable, and profitable choice. For more information, go to gelbvieh.org. And we welcome you back here to the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. My guest today is Allan Crockett. He's out of Arizona as a business consultant and coach for ranchers across the actually, you mentioned Canada a little bit ago, so I should expand that to the U.S. to say North America. And so we've been talking about the 6 Ps. First one was people, then principles, priority, plan. And before the break, Allan, we were talking about profit and the importance of people, again, need to plan build in an idea of how do we be profitable in the year. Let's get to the root of that just a little bit, and that is really knowing our enterprises within our own operations. How are they performing? Do we have some elements in there that are not pulling their weight? The things that are we doing as much as we can with those? So let's get back to these from an enterprise standpoint of how we work that goal of being profitable into our operation.
Yeah, you're right, Justin. We need to know the numbers on each enterprise that we have, and those numbers need to be good, and we need to not lie about the numbers. We need to be honest with the numbers and not say, if we've averaged an 85% conception rate for the last 10 years and we haven't changed anything in management, and we're, projecting numbers for the coming year, we're lying to ourselves if we're saying, okay, well, let's we're going to have a 90% conception rate this year, or 95, and we've historically done 85, and that's all we've done. We haven't changed anything. Well, that's lying to ourselves on that. If we've changed our management, and then we can say, all right, well, we've done this, we've improved the body condition of our cows, maybe we've changed the time of year that we calve, or our supplement program, maybe our grass management, and we're doing a better job growing grass and keeping green grass in front of cows more during the year, and that kind of thing. Okay, now we can look at our management and say, all right, we've changed some things. So based on the changes, we could say, all right, we project next year we will get a 90% conception rate. So there would be something that we would look at that would be different. If we haven't changed anything, it would be ludicrous to think, okay, our profit will change because what? Well, because we think we're going to get better weather next year, or there'll be a better government program next year. And really that's a terrible way to run a business. So we need to project those, and it needs to be on an enterprise basis. Each enterprise needs to be profitable, and not just a little bit, because if it's a little bit profitable in one enterprise and we have another one that's extremely profitable, why are we letting one that's just barely profitable drag down the overall profitability of our business?
Mm-hmm. When we talk about profitability, we're kind of heading into that time of year where we could be working on 2023 and projections. And I know for folks, when we start talking numbers, I know there's guys that don't like messing with numbers. I understand that. And my thought in that would be, for the ones that like to do numbers, there's the spreadsheets. I'm sure you have a spreadsheet and you know how to work that. Whether or not you're doing it, that's your choice. But for folks or guys that maybe not as comfortable with it, I think starting somewhere, even if it's simply with a pencil and paper and just writing some stuff down, it may not be the perfect thing, but it's sure better than doing nothing.
Absolutely. And if that's all you do, if you just list, okay, here's here's my income and here's my expenses, and let's see where that's at. And keep in mind, one of the expenses should be your salary, and you ought to be paying yourself at least what it would cost to replace you if if something happened and you had to hire somebody to come in and do what you're doing. It ought to at least be that much. Mm-hmm. But at the very least, we need to know what our expenses are and what our costs are, and then we can start breaking that down and figuring out what's not working and what is working.
Mm-hmm. You bet. Okay, let's move to our last one, this of the 6 Ps, and that is progress. What's that mean?
Yeah, so progress, when I look at the other 5 Ps, it starts with people. We really need to be improving the relationships that we have with each other. If our relationships aren't getting stronger year in and year out, something's wrong there. And that could be husband and wife, it could be parent and child, it could be, 2 siblings that are involved in a business together, or 3 or 4 siblings involved in a business together. If those relationships aren't getting stronger year in and year out, we haven't made progress. Something's going wrong there. So that's the first one. The second one is just looking at our financial situation, the wealth that we're creating. That ought to be improving every year, okay? And if it's not, that's where we start seeing lots of problems, is when money's tight and when things aren't working, we start butting heads, and especially if we can't put our finger on why we're not profitable, then we start butting heads and our relationships go downhill. Money problems are one of the leading causes of divorce in this country. And so when you look at that, we really should be improving our wealth situation year in and year out. So that's the second one. When we get specific about ranching, in order for us to be profitable, our livestock have to perform. Mm-hmm. If they don't perform, then if we don't get a breed up, if we don't wean good calves, etc., we're not going to have money, because that's what we rely on them. And the bottom line is, when we sell a calf or a cow, that's how we make money. So our livestock need to perform for us so that we can create wealth. And then the fourth one I would look at is ecologically, where are we at? Are we making progress? Are we, is the organic matter and the humus in our soil, is that improving? Are we sequestering carbon? Are we growing more grass than what we used to grow? Are we seeing, fewer noxious weeds and more good palatable grass? And are we making progress there? Because for long-term sustainability, if we're destroying our ecological resource, our livestock are not going to perform. We're not going to have the income and the wealth that we desire, and our quality of life is going to go in the toilet, and we're going to start butting heads with the people around us because nobody's happy. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of the 4 things there.
As you were talking about that, what I was thinking about on progress is, I believe sometimes we kind of get stuck in a trance of knowing where we would like to be. And then, of course, we've already talked about some of these things that can help us in getting to where we want to be. But it's almost like if we can't snap our fingers and that progress happen tomorrow, we just, I'm not going to start. And there's a mindset there of, that really kind of paralyzes people.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we look at nature, you plant a seed in nature, you don't collect the harvest of that tomorrow. It takes time for that to grow. I don't care if it's a backyard garden that you're doing. I don't care if we're looking at, all of a sudden we see a new species of grass starting to show up on a ranch, and we may have done some things to try to manipulate that and be better stewards of the land that have caused some better species of grass to start growing. But it didn't happen overnight. There was a process, and nature is a process. Our relationships, you're not a single guy in high school or college and you see this girl and I think I'll marry her and just go ask her to, it's a process. You date her, you get to know her, and she dates you, and you come to know each other. Yeah, we're compatible. We like each other. It's fun being together and that kind of thing. And it takes time. And so all of this kind of stuff takes time, but if we don't work at it, it will never happen. You're right. Mm-hmm.
I think in our culture now, for folks that maybe have read some self-improvement type books or heard different things, there's a wording out there called big, hairy, audacious goals. And while that in itself, I think when it first came out, has a lot of good elements to it, I believe that's the part of the paralyzation that I feel sometimes, that if we make these big, hairy, audacious goals, and if we're not making big, hairy, audacious moves every day, that it just feels, it's just almost depressing. And I feel one of the things that we have to feel good about is making small progress every day rather than these big giant steps. Let's just be happy. Was I better today than I was yesterday?
Yeah, I'm not a marathon runner, and I never want to be a marathon runner, but somebody decides they want to run a marathon. They don't go out today and run a marathon. They don't start on Monday, and on Saturday they're prepared to run a marathon. There is a process that you have to go through to work up to that. And I have friends that run marathons, and I applaud them, but I'm not one of them. But I know that there's a process of physically getting ready and even mentally getting ready and prepared to run a marathon. It doesn't happen overnight. And so when we look at nature and the variables that we deal with moisture in the soil and fertility and photosynthesis and all that, we can't expect to just, okay, I'm going to change the way I graze, and tomorrow I'm going to be growing a whole lot more grass. I mean, it's a process. It takes some time. Mm-hmm.
Well, we went through all 6 of these, and so to kind of recap here a little bit, as we look at these all 6 of these, you can see, I think if folks listening through these can almost shake their head and say, yeah, I see where that can fit in my ranching operation. To wrap this all up into a final conclusion, what would those thoughts be?
I think with the people side of it, we just need to have honest, open communication. Make sure that we're all headed the same direction. If we have questions and concerns, that we address those, and we do that in a professional way, and really make sure that those relationships are strong and improving. The principles are true, just like the law of gravity. Let's make sure we work within them. We don't try to force that square peg into a round hole. We work with nature, let nature do most of the work. As we do that, we become more profitable. Priorities, make sure we don't lose track of our faith and our family as we build a business, and that we're taking time for the things that matter most in our life. Plan, we have to have a plan and work the plan, monitor the plan, review it. If we're not making progress, if something's wrong, let's make some adjustments there. But we have to have the plan and stay on course to that. And that part of that plan is the profit side of it. Plan for that profit and make sure that profit happens every year. And that's in addition to our salaries. We mentioned earlier the salary is not part of profit. That's just a business expense before profit. But make sure we're planning for that, and we understand our numbers. We're honest with them. And then that we're making progress in all those areas that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm. Well, Allan, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Working Ranch Radio Show. If folks have questions or thoughts, they want to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Phone number is 520-253-0040, or they can shoot me an email, shoot me a text at that phone number, shoot me an email at allancrockett@gmail.com. So it's ALLANCROCKETT@gmail.com.
Okay. Well, I appreciate catching up with you again, and appreciate you joining us here on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
My pleasure, Justin. Always good to visit with you.
You bet. Well, stick with us, folks. Meteorologist Don Day is up next. We're going to be talking about our long-term weather, and it looks like we're starting to see some moisture maybe across the southern plains and into Texas for this coming week, and we'll talk about what the weather outlook's starting to look like for the end of August and into September when we return on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Do you have a young child, grandchild, niece, or nephew that loves the weather and wants to learn more? Day Weather has produced a children's weather journal full of weather facts, fun weather experiments, coloring pages, and pages to record weather observations for every season of the year. The weather journal is for ages 3 to 7 and designed to be fun and educational. The interactive weather projects are fun for the whole family to take part in. For only $10, the Day Weather Journal is a great gift idea for any occasion. Click on our Amazon link to order at dayweather.com.
And we welcome you back here to the Working Ranch Radio Show. Justin Mills here with you as meteorologist Don Day now joining us. And looks like we're starting to see a shift in our weather pattern, Don, as we're hopefully maybe the worst of the summer is behind us. But we do start to see fundamentally a shift in this weather. What's that looking like?
Yeah, and it's really nothing that's going to be unusual. When you look at the calendar, we're heading towards the middle of August here, and you usually start to see a late summer pattern evolve around the second or third of August, second or third week of August. And now for a lot of folks, you may not notice any change. You will be saying, oh man, it's still hot. I mean, we still got these long, hot summer days. That is true. But this time of year, when you're trying to look at a long range forecast, you start paying attention to what's going on in the higher latitudes. You start to see those shorter days and longer nights up there. You start to see more robust cold fronts beginning to form. And that is important because what that does is the second half of August, early September, you start to see changes that end up coming south into the lower 48. And we're going to see that. In fact, we're going to see next week some cooler air move into the central southern plains, bringing relief from heat. And also, there's going to be some of the best rain all summer that we've seen developing for some of the southern plains. And this would include Texas, and a lot of the Gulf Coast region looks to be getting wet.
Yep. Well, that'll be helpful this week coming up that they start to see a little bit of relief. And like you said, it still could be Texas hot down there, but maybe the worst is past us. And so you touched briefly about fundamentally we're seeing some changes and weather patterns in that. And that kind of goes back then to what's affecting that and up into the Gulf of Alaska. Something there with the water temperatures there a little warmer than normal that could give us maybe an idea of what we're going to see as we head into fall of the year.
Yeah, we talk all the time about La Nina and El Nino, and we talk about the equator region as being really critically important, which it is. But as we get into the colder seasons, and I know no one really wants me to talk about colder seasons here in August, but when we start to get towards fall and winter, we watch very carefully what's going on up into the North Pacific. So we shift away a little bit and start looking up at the Gulf of Alaska, the Northern Pacific, what the sea surface temperatures are doing there along the Aleutians, then up into western British Columbia and south of Anchorage. And what we're seeing developing is a warm pool. Now, it doesn't mean the waters is warm like you would want to go skinny dipping, but you're looking at the sea surface temperature anomaly showing some warmth. Temperatures getting warmer up there compared to the 30-year average. When you have a large warm pool in the North Pacific as you enter into the colder season, that is a cold signal for the lower 48. And what you can see sometimes in the early fall season is you can see some shots across the bow, so to speak. You have the opportunity to see some shots of colder air get released. And usually that'll happen in September and early October. And when you start looking at the calendar and you say, all right, we're headed towards, here we are in the middle of August, you start talking about something that could only be 3 or 4 weeks away in terms of starting to see some of those bigger fronts come into the United States, which would effectively put an end to a lot of the real hot summer weather. And up in the northern latitudes, the amount of cold that we're going to see up in Greenland, up on the north slope of Alaska, is pretty darn impressive as we get into the last 10 days of August. So we're watching those things that could be harbinger of things to come as we get into the fall season. And as we're not getting far away, Justin, that in a few weeks we'll be able to maybe start talking about that winter forecast.
Okay. So with that weather pattern change, if we were to move from west to east across the country, how does that look for the next couple of weeks? Is the west going to be a little warmer than normal and then the colder through the Midwest, or how does that look from your perspective?
Yeah, exactly what you said. So what'll be evolving next week is this cooler weather moving into the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the eastern part of the country, and the high is going to shift back into the far western areas of the U.S. again. So the Rockies west of the divide in the Pacific Northwest and California are going to see probably some pretty warm temperatures again. This is especially true west of the Continental Divide. So there's going to be some heat returning to the Pacific Northwest. as we get into the last, let's say last 2 weeks of August. It could be pretty warm again in Seattle and Portland and parts of the northern Great Basin, while the center and the eastern part of the United States is going to see temperatures that are going to be more moderate. Now, what will likely happen is that may flip as we get into early September, where the colder weather goes into the Pacific Northwest and the warmer weather shifts into the central part of the United States.
Okay. All right. Well, that gets us lined out here for the next couple of weeks, and good to see down in the southern plains of Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas getting some moisture this coming week ahead of us. So good news for them. Thanks for joining us here again on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Thanks for having me.
Meteorologist Don Day with a look at our long-term weather. I want to point you to his website at dayweather.com. You can go there. Not only can you find out about Don Day, who's based out of Cheyenne, Wyoming, but also his daily video podcast, Day Weather Podcast, that he kicks out every Monday through Friday morning. But also something else is weather instruments. Now, we've talked here on the show. In fact, I had Don on, this was many shows ago, as we were talking weather stations. And, it's a great way to keep track of your weather, which is important in managing your ranching operation. He's got some digital weather stations there, as well as thermometers, rain gauges, and things that you can take a look at. And you can look at his website to find out more information on those things. Well, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to put a wrap on this week's episode, and I'll give you an idea of what's coming up on next week's Working Ranch Radio Show. We'll be back after this. Living in the country means working in the country, and that calls for a tough tractor. Well, Bobcat has 15 models in its compact tractor lineup from 21 to 58 horsepower. With the help of your local Bobcat dealer, you'll find a perfect match for your property and to-do list. Get a look at all the different models at bobcat.com, and while you're there, use the Build and Quote tool to design your ideal machine. Get yourself one tough tractor from one tough animal. Bobcat. Visit bobcat.com. Well, as we begin to shut the lights down here and things in the Working Ranch Radio Show studio, I want to thank you for joining us on our program. I'm headed out, looking forward to getting done with a water pipeline that we've been working on this summer, and I see an end in sight. And man, oh man, it has definitely been a big project, but we're glad to have that done, and it looks like we're going to get some use out of it already here as we head into the latter part of summer. Coming up on next week's show, we're going to be headed north. Now, when I say north, I mean north of the border, up to our friends up in Canada, and working on an interview with the Calgary Stampede and their ranches up there and their ranch managers. In fact, how they manage that operation up there. And of course, we all know the Calgary Stampede for what it is as the rodeo event. And also, if you follow rodeo much, you know they have a pretty strong stock contracting business as well, and we're going to talk with them about their ranching side of that whole business and how that works. And so, looking forward to sharing that interview with you. I do want to thank our sponsors here today of the Working Ranch Radio Show. Gelbvieh Balancer, the smart, reliable, and profitable choice. To find out more, go to their website at gelbvieh.org. Also, Zoetis, it's the little things that could derail progress, but your herd can be covered. Visit GetLessParasites.com for solutions from Zoetis. And the American Akaushi Association, experience the difference at akaushi.com. Well, the Working Ranch Radio Show is a production of Working Ranch Magazine, branded #1 by America's Ranchers. And if you've been listening the last couple of weeks, you know that the captain, Tim O'Byrne, has been working very fiercely on getting the next issue of the Working Ranch Magazine out to publish. And it's there, folks. And I'll tell you what, this is a good one. And so if you do not have your subscription started to Working Ranch Magazine, go to their website at workingranchmag.com and you can get your subscription started here today of the Working Ranch Radio Show. Well, if you'd like to get a hold of me, I always forget to do this at the very beginning of the show, so I got to remember to do it now. You can sure send me an email or a text. My email address is justin.workingranch@gmail.com, or the studio phone number here is 307-363-COWS. Well, we appreciate you joining us here today. Be sure to join us right here, same time, same place, or on your favorite podcast provider. I'm your host, Justin Mills, and until next time, keep your chin down and your mind in the middle. So long.